How to factorize trinomials with the coefficient of x². Let's say, for example, we have 2x² plus 5x minus 3. How do we factorize this problem? So we are going to do the very same thing. We're going to open two brackets and say that how can we write 2x²? We can write 2x² by having what? 2x multiplying with x. And then the second step will be to find the factors of the last term. So in this case, our last term, it has a factor of what? Of 1 and 3, because that is a prime number. So now I'm going to say the factors of our last term is 1 and 3. So now, because we have a coefficient of x², we are going to say now, what will be a number that has to multiply with this coefficient of x² between our factors here, so that when we subtract our factors, we get the middle term, which is 5. So now, this coefficient, which is 2 here, it can multiply with 1 or it can multiply with 2. But now, after it multiplies out, the factors must minus and give us the middle term, which is 5. So now, if we multiply this 3 by 2, we are going to have our factors now as what? 1 and 6. And therefore, we can clearly see that 6 minus 1 is going to give us 5. So this means that the 3 is the one that is supposed to multiply with the coefficient of x², which is 2. So now, this 3 that multiply, or the factors that multiply with the coefficient, we put it on a bracket whereby we don't have the coefficient of x. So the 3 is going to be on this side, and then the factor 1 is going to be on that side. And then we're going to say what? The last sign is negative. This means our sign is supposed to be different, but now the bigger number will take the sign of the middle term. So now the bigger number is 3 here, but this 3 is actually 6. And then we have now 1 to be negative, because we must have different signs. So that is how you would factorize a trinomial that has a coefficient of x². So now let us try to simplify this and see if we'll be able to get back to what we had. So you're going to say 2x² will multiply with x, and it will also multiply with 3. And the negative 1 will multiply with x, and it will also multiply with 3. So now when we say 2x multiplied by x, what we get is 2x². And therefore we say 2x multiplied by 3, that is going to give us positive 6x. Then we have negative 1 multiplied by x, that is going to give us negative x. And therefore the negative 1 multiplied by the positive 3, that is going to give us negative 3. So now we have the like terms here. So this will simplify to be 2x². 6 minus 1 is going to be positive 5x minus 3. So we can clearly see that the answer that we get is the same thing as what we had as our problem. So that means we have factorized efficiently so. So now let us look at the next problem. Remember, you can pause this video and try to tackle the problem by yourself. So now let's say, for example, we have 3x² plus 4x plus 1. So the first thing that we do, we open two brackets, and then we ask ourselves, how can we write this 3x²? We can write 3x² by saying what? 3x multiplied by x. And then we say, now what are the factors of the last term? So the last term is just 1, and we know the factors of 1 is just 1 and 1. So now, because we have the coefficient of x², this means that this coefficient of x², it must multiply with one of our factors. So now in this case, it doesn't matter which one. So now this will multiply with that. So this means our new factors is 1 and 3. So now remember, we said that we're going to look at the sign of the last term. So if it's positive, that means we're going to choose the factors that when we add them, They give us the middle term. So 1 and 3 is going to give us what? The middle term. But now what you put in the bracket here is the original factors of 1. Remember, the original factors of 1 is just 1 and 1. And then the sign is positive for the last term, therefore we're going to have the same signs. But now the middle term will take the sign. So of which is going to be positive and positive, because the last sign is positive, our signs are going to be the same. So now let's move on to the next problem. Let's say, for example, we have 3x² plus x minus 10. So we are going to do the very same thing to say now we open two brackets and we ask ourselves, how can we write 3x²? We can write 3x² by saying 3x multiplied by x. And then we're going to look for the factors of 10. So now what are the factors of 10? We have 1 and 10. Then if you say 10 divided by 2, you're going to have 5 and 2. Or let me just put them in a nice way. We have 2 and 5. And those are the only factors of 10 that we have. So now we're going to say what? We're going to say, okay, because we have the coefficient of x², that means one factor must multiply with this coefficient of x². In a way that when we subtract our factors, we are going to get the middle term, which is 1. So now which factor here must multiply with 3 so that when we minus the factors, we get what? We get 1. So if we look at this group of factors here, there's no way we can multiply with 3 and get 1. But now if we look at the second factors here, if we multiply the 2 by 3, we are going to get our new factors at what? As 6 and 5. And therefore, when we minus 6 and 5, we're going to get the middle term, which is 1. So therefore, we're going to use these factors. But now, the factor that is going to multiply with 3, we put it on the different bracket where we have the coefficient of 3. So the 2 has to be this side, and the 5 will be that side. So now, we look at the last side. The last side is negative. Therefore, our signs are going to be different. But now, the bigger number will take the sign of the middle term. So now, in this case, which one is big? Is it 5 or 2? So now, remember, this 2 here, it became 6. So it's the one that is bigger than 5 because it will multiply with the 3x. So now, in this case, 2 is bigger than 5 because this 2 is going to be 6. So now, the 2 is going to get the negative sign, and then the 5 will get the positive sign. And then that is how you will factorize this kind of a problem. I hope this makes sense. So let us move on and try another example. Let's say, for example, we have 6a² plus 14a plus 8. So now, if if we look at this trinomial here, we can clearly see that we have a common factor in all our terms. So now we can start first by taking out a common factor. So the common factor that we have is 2. So we're going to take out 2 as a common factor and we open the bracket. Remember, when you take out the common factor, you're going to say this divided by the common factor. So 6 divided by 2, that is going to give us 3a². Then you're going to say the second term, 14 divided by 2, that is going to give us 7. So you're going to have what? Positive 7a. And then you're going to say 8 divided by 2, which will give us 4. So now that is the first step that we do. We take out a common factor. So after taking out a common factor, if we have a common factor, then we can just simplify our what? We can factorize, our trinomial. So this 2 here is going to be out here. But now remember, if we factorize the trinomial, what we do is that we open two brackets. And then we are going to say now, how can we write 3a²? So we're going to say this is going to be 3a and a. So now we're going to look for the factors of what? For the factors of 4. So factors of 4 is 1 and 4 and 2 and 2. So those are the only factors of 4. So now after we find the factors of 4, we are going to say because we have a coefficient, So this coefficient it must multiply with one of the factor so that when we add the factors, we get the middle term, which is 7. So now if we look at the first terms here, if we multiply any term with 3 here, are we going to get 7? Yes. Look at this. If we say 1 multiplied by 3, therefore we are going to get what? We're going to get 3 and 4. So but now if you add 3 and 4, what do you get? You're going to get 7. So now these are the perfect factors for us, 1 and 4. But now the factor of 1, it must be on the side that will multiply it with what? With the coefficient of x². So the 1 is going to be on this side and the 4 will be on this side. And then now the last sign is positive. This means our signs have to be the same, and we take the sign of the middle term, which is positive. And that is how you would factorize the problem. So now let us look at the last problem in case if this does not make sense. So let us try to look at the last one. So now let's say we have 6g² minus 15g minus 9. So now if we look at this here, what is happening? Do we have any common factor? So that is what we look at first. We can clearly see that we have a common factor because 3 can go into all the terms. So we are going to take out 3 as a common factor and open the brackets. To say now the first term divided by 3, so 6 divided by 3 is going to give us 2g². And therefore negative 15 divided by 3, negative 15 divided by 3 is going to give us negative 5g. And therefore we're going to say what? Negative 9 divided by 3, that is going to give us negative 3. So after taking out a common factor, therefore we have a simplified trinomial. So then we can do what? We can factorize this trinomial. So we are going to say 3, and then we have a trinomial, so we open 2 brackets. So now we're going to say that, how can we write the first term, which is 2g²? We can write 2g² as what? As 2g multiplied by g. And then we're going to look at what? The factors of the last term. So the last term is just a prime number now, so we have 1 and 3 only. So but now, because we have the coefficient of g² as 2, we're going to look at what? Which factor are we supposed to multiply with 2 so that when we minus our factors, we get 5. So now, this means that if we multiply this 3 by 2, we are going to have what? We are going to have 1 and 6. And then if we have 1 and 6, 1 and 6, when we minus them, they are going to give us 5. So 1 and 3 is our factors, but now the 3 must be on this side where it will multiply with the 2. So now the 3 is here and the 1 is there. But now our sign is negative. This means the signs must be the different signs, and then you're going to say what? The bigger number will take the sign of the middle term. So this is the bigger number because it's going to be 6 here. So that is why we say this is negative and that is positive. And that is how you will factorize the trinomials with a coefficient. This is all for the video. Thank you very much.